Imagine discovering your partner cheated on you. It hurts, but then you learn something that almost makes it worse. They weren't unhappy. They still laughed with you, still made plans for the future, still said they loved you. They never wanted to leave. So, if they loved you, why risk losing everything? For decades, psychologists have tried to answer that question. And what they discovered is far more disturbing than most people realize. Because cheating isn't always about love. Sometimes it's about the way the human brain works. We like to believe love is enough. That if two people are truly happy together, infidelity simply can't happen. It's comforting. It makes the world feel predictable. But reality doesn't work that way. In fact, many people who have affairs describe themselves as satisfied with their relationship. Some even say they still loved their partner, which means we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, were they unhappy? Maybe we should be asking, what was their brain looking for? Because your brain is constantly chasing something. Not happiness, novelty. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors survived by exploring, finding new food, new places, new allies. Curiosity wasn't just useful. It kept people alive. That ancient system still exists inside your brain today. Every new experience, every unexpected opportunity, every mystery can trigger dopamine. People often call dopamine the pleasure chemical. But that's misleading. Dopamine isn't what makes you enjoy something. It's what makes you want it. It's the chemical of anticipation, of curiosity, of possibility. That's why opening a gift feels exciting. Why waiting for a text message feels exciting. Why starting a new job feels exciting. Your brain loves what it hasn't fully experienced yet. Now think about a long-term relationship. The first date. The first kiss. The first I love you. Everything feels electric. Not necessarily because the relationship was better, but because everything was new. Then something completely normal happens. Your brain adapts. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. The things that once gave you an intense emotional reaction gradually become familiar. The excitement fades. Not because love disappears, because your brain stops treating it as something new. For healthy relationships, that's actually a good thing. The relationship becomes something deeper. Trust, comfort, security. But for some people, comfort starts feeling like boredom. And boredom is something the brain desperately tries to escape. That's why most affairs don't begin with sex. They begin with attention. A coworker laughs at your jokes. Someone remembers something your partner forgot. A stranger makes you feel interesting again. Nothing inappropriate has happened. At least, that's what people tell themselves. But the brain already notices something important. Uncertainty. And uncertainty is incredibly addictive. Think about social media. Why do people check their phones dozens of times every day? Not because every notification is amazing. Because they don't know if there will be one. That uncertainty keeps the reward system active. Casinos work exactly the same way. People don't become addicted because they always win. They become addicted because they might. Flirting follows a surprisingly similar pattern. Every message, every smile, every compliment creates anticipation. Sometimes, the fantasy becomes more exciting than reality, which explains something many people never expect. The affair itself isn't always what the brain is chasing. Sometimes, it's the chase. But here's where things become even more uncomfortable. People don't cheat for the same reason. Some crave validation. Being desired makes them feel valuable. Others constantly seek excitement. Peace feels empty. Predictability feels boring. Some are simply impulsive. They don't spend months planning an affair. Opportunity appears. Self-control disappears. Others aren't trying to find someone new. They're trying to escape themselves. A career crisis. Getting older. Feeling invisible. Questioning who they've become. The affair becomes less about another person and more about becoming a different version of themselves. Which is why many people end the affair and still feel exactly as empty as before. Because the problem was never the relationship. It was something they carried with them all along. But perhaps the most fascinating part is how nobody thinks they're the villain. Almost nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to betray someone I love today. Instead, the brain tells a different story. It's just texting. It's only lunch. We're just friends. I'm not doing anything wrong. Psychologists call this moral rationalization. When our actions begin to conflict with our values, our brain doesn't always change the behavior. Sometimes, it changes the story instead. The lie becomes easier to believe. The boundary quietly moves. One conversation becomes 10. One secret becomes several. One lie requires another. Until one day, someone looks back and wonders, how did I end up here? The truth is, they didn't cross one line. They crossed dozens of tiny ones. Each one felt harmless. Until together, they became impossible to ignore. So, if every human brain craves novelty, why doesn't everyone cheat? Because attraction isn't the problem. Temptation isn't the problem. Even curiosity isn't the problem. The difference is recognizing those feelings before they become decisions. People who stay faithful aren't people who never find someone else attractive. They're people who understand something incredibly important. You don't protect a relationship when you're already in the middle of temptation. You protect it long before temptation ever arrives. By setting boundaries. By recognizing emotional intimacy before it turns into secrecy. By understanding your own weaknesses, instead of pretending they don't exist. So, why do people cheat? Even when they're happy. Sometimes they're chasing excitement. Sometimes validation. Sometimes an escape from themselves. But more often than we'd like to admit, they're chasing a feeling their brain mistakes for something meaningful. Understanding this doesn't excuse betrayal. Nothing does. But it explains why love alone isn't always enough. Because the greatest threat to a relationship isn't always another person. Sometimes, it's the quiet voice inside your own mind, telling you that one small decision won't change anything. And that's exactly how the biggest mistakes usually begin.